In the summer of 1993, I was invited to go to Russia with the Jesus Project and show the Jesus video, to meet with educators, to meet with doctors, to meet with groups of professional people, and to share the story of Jesus from a historical perspective. And it was essentially allowed by the then Soviet Union as historical perspective of religion that was coming into what was trying to be the opening up of the Soviet Union. Then in late September, early October of 1993 was the constitutional crisis in the Soviet Union, and Boris Yeltsin was president. He tried to overthrow parliament, everything went bad. There was fighting in the streets. The Russian White House was blown to bits at the top. It was just all really nasty. People were killed, and the Soviet Union, essentially as we knew it and has been known forever at that point historically, fell. It was kind of the last straw in what was coming to the end of the Soviet Union. And then into that mix in early February, late January, early February 1994, we flew into Russia. It was a country that was just crazy at the time, absolutely crazy. No two ways where the wealth that you see today in Russia was not prominent then. It was a fallen country. The people were feeling broken. We were excited. This is the truth. This is what I'd say to people. I had a translator for a while named Sergey, and I remember flying from Belgrade to Tumen on Aeroflot, and I looking at Sergey, and I said to him, this must be such an exciting time for you guys to be out underneath communist rule and to have so many opportunities. And he blew up on me. He looked at me and he said, I'm so sick and tired of Americans telling me all the opportunities we have. He said, our country is broken. The land that I grew up with as a Russian is done. He said, our hearts are broken. I hadn't considered it that way at all. I'd only considered it from the American perspective. Hadn't thought about it. What if I was a Russian in the midst of this? And what if my political leadership was falling to pieces? And there were buffoons like Boris Yeltsin as the president. People undisciplined and out of control, and division in the nation that brought down an entire nation. But out of that entire trip, one of the things that stands out most, because I think in every great adventure and in every trip, there are certain moments that stand out. And when we left Moscow was, 10, 20 below. The whole time we were there, it was February, first of all. Russia's cold in February. And the whole time we were there, they were having a cold spell that was moving all the way across the country into Asia. And we started in Moscow, which is still European Russia. And then we closed out our trip in Asia, out in Tumen, the other side of the Urals, where it was 40 below zero. It was a crazy thing to do, absolutely crazy thing to do. And leaving Moscow, there were probably 40 or 50 of us traveling together. I'd gone into Russia with $50,000 in US currency stuffed down my pants. It's the most money I ever had stuffed in my pants to hide it, because the way you could take over trains, what was happening is the Russian mafia was coming in and they would buy up all the tickets for an entire train, because they could get them at the old Soviet socialist prices, which were made for the people to keep the prices cheap. And so the mafia would come in and buy all the tickets, and they would stand and they would sell them to people at 5 or 10 or even 100 times the price, whatever they could command. And people had to pay them because they held all the tickets. Capitalism at its most crass form. And so we went in with $50,000 so that we could make sure we could buy train tickets across the country, that we could make sure that we could get hotel rooms without them all being occupied by other people and without the struggles. And I was only one of a few people that had cash down my pants. We were smuggling it in. It's against the law to take more than $10,000 in. And so it was already nerve-wracking. Then we left Moscow. It was the middle of the night, and we'd bought an entire section of a train for all of us, 1 or 2 cars, and we had the luggage, but no one to load the luggage because everything had been purchased already. So we had to load our own luggage from a truck that had driven it from Moscow out to the train station in the middle of the night, maybe midnight or 1 in the morning, with it being 10 or 20 below zero. Lights not on in the train station, onto a luggage car in the train. And here we were, people of every age. I was 40 or whatever I was at that time, people of every age coming through and loading them as if we were a fire brigade with buckets, all of our luggage onto this train, with the fog coming up off the train and with our air, the steam coming off our mouth and our bodies, and just one light in the distance. It's one of the most surreal images in my head, even still, as I think about it. And it's like a work of art. It's like something from a movie, just kind of, I'm sure for each of us, just engraved on our brains and our spirits, what that moment was like. To be there in the middle of it all, when a nation was falling, when we were taking advantage of the moment and moving in to teach, and somehow trying to bring good news into places where it felt like everything was falling apart. Literally, the White House in Moscow there, the black was still across the entire front of the building, and the entire front of the building was still crushed from just where weeks before, 12 weeks before, it had been attacked. You can go online and see the pictures of what it looked like then. And here we were in the middle of the night, in the middle of the darkness, in the middle of the cold, in the middle of it all, going to a city none of us had ever been to and none of us had ever heard to, out across southern Russia, just on the border of the Ukraine. I thought about, if you want to live a life that's not mediocre, occasionally you have to say, yes, this is how I got involved in that trip. I was sitting in a room. I heard a man tell the story of Chelyabinsk, Russia, which is where I thought I would be going to, and say he needed some help there. And in this room of 3,000 pastors, I felt the Spirit strangely move me, and I knew I needed to go. And afterwards, I went up to him and said, I'll come. I'll go with you. He says, well, it's not an inexpensive trip. I said, I'll pay the way. I'll go. And that's how I got started in my month into Russia. I remember my friend Mark Leonard, he came in. I don't think Mark had ever been out of the United States, maybe Mexico, but I don't think he'd ever been to Europe or any place like that. He was leading worship at the church at the time. Maybe he hadn't even started leading worship. Maybe he was just a part of the team at that point. He came into my office and I was telling him about the trip. And as he leaned across, I used to have this great big desk, my great big desk. I said, Mark, why don't you come with me? He said, what do you mean? I said, you don't have any kids, Mark. I mean, besides your grown son, who was an adult at this point, or 19 or 20. I said, why don't you come with me, Mark? Natalie will understand. And he looked across and said, I think I will. He went home and he prayed about it, he thought about it, and he agreed to. He didn't have a passport. We were leaving in like 3 weeks. He didn't have a visa. We needed a visa to go. He didn't get his visa until we were in England waiting. He flew to England without a visa, not knowing if he was going to get to go the rest of the way to Russia, which is where the visa was finally delivered to him. Amazing, amazing that he did that. And somehow here we were on a train platform in the station in Moscow with a moment that's still engraved in my memory to this day, experiencing the miracle that was still yet to unfold out ahead of us. Never regretted that trip. Don't regret a moment of it. I'm sorry for some of the things I said to people like Sergei and the great opportunity that was out ahead of him. I looked at things so much differently than he did. Sorry for my ignorance about the entire nation when I went. I really didn't know much about Russia at all. Still don't, to be honest with you. But it changed my life, and it changed the course and the direction of my life in the way I looked at the world, and realizing there are so many things that we just don't know. And when we step out from our mediocrity, we discover a life that's miraculous in so many ways. Sometimes it's on a cold platform in the middle of the night with money smuggled into the country, stuffed down our pants, just hoping to get by. But if you're not willing to take a risk, you're not going to have an adventure. Do you want to have an adventure today? Do you want to go into 2020, geez, with just a whole new outlook on life? Get ready just to do something outrageous, to listen for the Spirit the way Mark did when I asked him to come with me, the way I did when that man asked me to come with him, and then just go to where you don't know you're even going or where you don't understand what it's all going to be about, but because something inside of you says, I need to do this. And then you're responding not to that mediocrity that so often controls our life, but instead you're letting the miracle, take control of the tiller of your life and direct you. What's controlling your life today? Is the miraculous or the mediocre? I want to be the miracle. I think you want to be the miracle too. Why not come with me? Let's be miraculous in the days to come. Just 3 weeks left in the year. Let's celebrate them just by being amazing. Let's go. Let's cross that platform again. Let's just hand things off. Let's do something exciting in the days to come. God bless you. I'm going to Siempre. I'm going to have a miraculous day. In fact, I've taken so long messing around, stretching and doing yoga and reading. I'm not going to get to run because I have an appointment this morning. So I wanted to get this done to say something to you. God bless you. Have a fantastic day.